Washington, Speaker of the House. I'm going to start today with a quote from Tom Ball. Imperialism screwed them up. And now, essentially, the opposition want to take that even further and to screw them up even more. Because for some reason, Tom Ball thinks that we have got the art of going into other countries and invading them absolutely perfect. Are you serious? So, I have 2 points of extension today, which are going to be, 1, the government is not accountable, and secondly, uncertainty. But first, I have 2 points of rebuttal. Essentially, Tom's speech, John's speech. So, first, Tom brought up this whole idea about obligation, saying we have this whole obligation because we screwed them up. And so, we haven't really heard any justification as to actually why going into this country is actually again going to make things better. Because if we look at example after example, we can see that we just don't get it right. And so chances are, we're just going to go in and screw them up further. He seems to think that the Iraq War was a resounding success. I mean, how can you say this when we get evidence after evidence, example after example, of people coming out saying, we wish that we never invaded in the first place. And how can he say something like this? The Iraq War was illegal, and yet he called it a resounding success. If that is the best example you can come up with, then I really don't think you have much to stand. And so because you simply don't have any evidence for that, I just cannot take that to be true. And secondly, no thank you. I'm going to be looking at John's speech, where he was saying that people are crying out for freedom, which is just a blatant assertion. This is the assertion that has caused this debate. This is the assertion that makes people go forward thinking that we should be imposing democracy on the rest of the world, which, by the way, is quite frankly one of the most anti-democratic acts that is possible. To go to war in the first place. So that is absolutely unacceptable and unprovable. Another blatant assertion coming from the opposition there. It's simply not true. And I don't want John, I mean, there's something that really annoyed me, considering we are 2 mathematicians and he wanted to talk about odds. Well, what is the odds that you're actually going to invade a country and get everything right? They're extremely low. No thank you, Mr. Ball. Now, I'm going to go on to my first point of extension today, about accountability. And essentially, the one point here is that this is incredibly undemocratic because we are not fulfilling any democratic duty. These people in another country, they have not elected us. We have absolutely no obligation, no accountability to them. We are not their government. And therefore, we do not have any responsibility towards these people. John.
As an individual, we have an obligation to every other individual in the world.
You say this, fine. I will respond to your second point. We believe that we shouldn't just be listening to what you think should be the obligations, which is essentially Western ideology. We should listen to international law. If international law dictates that we need to go into another country and invade, then yes, that's fine. But we do not agree with going into start illegal wars, going into start wars on the whim of Western ideology. We think it's completely not true. We definitely do not have this obligation, which seems to be perpetuating throughout the motion today. And so because of that, we are not fulfilling any accountability. We're not fulfilling any accountability towards those people, and we certainly aren't fulfilling any accountability towards our own people, which is what a democracy would actually be. So to actually go into another country, imposing democracy on them, seemingly, is actually one of the most anti-democratic things you're doing, and so completely violates the principles of this debate today. We believe that democracy is not worth fighting for in countries that are completely separated from us, and we have absolutely nothing to do with. No thank you, sit down. So because we do not know better, that is why we are not accountable, we are not responsible to go into these countries to cause a regime change. Now secondly, I'm going to be looking at the idea of uncertainty. And this is a point that came up in John's speech a lot. Because we can't, if anything, in war, what can we be certain of? Can we be certain that we are going to cause massive change and benefits to these countries? No, that's simply not true. All we can be certain of is that we are going to cause widespread death and destruction. We're going to be causing death on their side and on our side. That's the only thing that we know we are going to bring. We are going to bring suffering. That is what we are certain of. And so we do not believe that because of these massive uncertainties, the risk is worth taking. Yes, okay.
We give you some very nuanced analysis about how we go into nations where the monopoly of power lies in one individual, but the democratic mandate for change lies in a greater population, even though they don't have that monopoly of power. That is a form of democracy that we wish to propagate and we wish to help. Please respond.
No, sir, I really do not think that that is a form of democracy, because, as again, that is just a blatant assertion. You are asserting that the people want our help. That is another thing that is marked on this greater uncertainty. There is no way that you can simply turn around and look in a country and say everyone in that country is crying out for our help. That is simply not true. I mean, we can look at the examples of the extremists. I mean, you're always going to have people there who don't want our help, and you've always got to have people who, no, for example, they're perfectly fine as things were going in, but yes, as we got in, they want us to stay. But still, in the first place, they never wanted our help, because you seem to have this flawed ideology that democracy should be propagating throughout the world, which we simply do not agree. Well, we do agree that we like democracy, but we should not be propagating it ourselves. We should not be inflicting our ideology on other people. That is the point we are trying to make today. And so, because we cannot make the decision for the populace of these other countries, because we are not certain of what they truly want. We are not certain that we are going to do the right thing. We are not certain that we are actually going to cause the benefits that the proposition seemingly think we are going to cause today. Because even if we do bring in some sort of change, we're still going to be bringing out the massive problems that has been brought up the table of extremism, etc., terrorism. That is something else that we are certain of, while we're completely uncertain of the benefits that we're bringing. And so because of this, we are completely unprepared to be taking such risks on ideologies, on principles that are fundamentally flawed. And so because the principles are flawed, and because we cannot simply go propagating it throughout the world, then we cannot simply go into other countries, intervene, in the hope of bringing democracy there. And so because we cannot sacrifice lives on vague guesswork, that is why we should vote for the proposition.